Yeah, I think so.
Okay, sounds good. So let me just get that and hope everybody's on. Okay, so so here we go. So again, I'm Greg Naraki. I'm the director of customer engagement here at Globus, and I'll just give you a quick history of Globus. We've got a 20 plus year history with the DOE and National Science Foundation through government grants is really where we came from. And you've probably heard of the Globus Toolkit many years ago, and it kind of came out of that work. And as we matured, we found really our sweet spot was in the file transfer business. So we built a SaaS application for file transfer and sharing, and I'll be demoing that today. But just want to kind of say a quick thanks to all our users out there. And you can see this slide is perpetually outdated because there's more and more transfers by the minute. But you can see to this date, we've got over 258 petabytes transferred, 56,000 registered users, and over 10,000 active endpoints. And I'll talk a little bit about what endpoints are as we move on. So I mentioned the SaaS application, and government grants are a tenuous way to go these days. So what we did is with our SaaS application is developed a subscription model, and so we've got subscribers that help fund us, and really the goal is to be here. Not just our past 20-year history, but to be here in another 20 years and serving data, transferring data. So again, thank you to all our subscribers, of which Idaho State is one. So let's talk a little bit about what Globus is. And when we talk about Globus, our value proposition is unified access to all your research data across all your systems using any existing identity. And hopefully that will have more meaning as we go on. So when we talk about Globus, we really talk about three key things. And the first thing we talk about is transfer. And in this example, you'll see a scientist has some data on an instrument, and they initiate the transfer request. They tell one of the endpoints on one of the Connect servers to go ahead and transfer data from one endpoint to the other. And Globus transfers the file reliably, securely. We've got error checking on the file. We've got ways to, I call it set and forget. You set the transfer, and if it goes away or the connection goes away, we'll pick back up where things started from. So that's the transfer that we're so famous for. The other aspect to Globus is sharing. And in this example, that researcher will select certain files to share on the endpoint, set the various permissions, perhaps to an individual, perhaps to groups, all under that researcher's control. And Globus controls the access to those files. There's no need to move the file to any sort of external cloud storage, and that's true with the transfer as well. You'll notice there wasn't a two-hop process. It actually transferred from endpoint to endpoint, not endpoint to cloud storage, and back down. And then that collaborator would log into Globus and access the shared files and have the ability to download them to their own endpoint. Now, there's a third aspect to Globus that we are recently kind of developed and showing is the Globus Publish. And in the Globus Publish application, you'll assemble your data set and set up a community, attach metadata to it if you wish, and optionally a curator could review that data set, approve it, publish that data on that publication repository, and then it's available for discovery. So others can come in, peers and collaborators could go and search on that data set and download and use that data set. So it really, publication is really kind of an extrapolation of transfer and share. And, it incorporates the storage location, the metadata and the schema and the controls by which to classify it, the persistent identifiers, the DOIs or the handles, optional curation, and of course the permissions to submit, curate, and access that data. And then of course all the workflows to orchestrate that entire process. And the key here is only a web browser is required, and you can use your storage system of your choice. I'll talk a little bit about some of our storage systems that we work with. And it uses your existing campus credentials. And you'll see that in the demos I give. So let's talk a little bit about endpoints. So an endpoint is just our storage abstraction. All transfers happen between endpoints. And you'll see when I bring up the Globus application, you'll see a transfer from one endpoint to another. And the Globus Connect server is what instantiates those endpoints. So you'll have Globus Connect server on a DTN talking to that file system, and there's your endpoint. Now you say, but I don't have any endpoint. Oops, sorry, I'm getting an echo. Let me. Can we mute? I'm going to set you to mute. Or maybe you want to mute yourself there in Pocatello. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's see, here we go. Okay, so you say, well, I don't have any endpoints. Well, we've got demo and test endpoints all set up for you. We've got tutorial endpoints, and that, of course, should say tutorial endpoint 1 and endpoint 2. There are also endpoints out there from the likes of ESNet with test endpoints. There's read-only and write-only endpoints out there, and some contain file samples of various sizes. So if you want to try out Globus, you can go to those ESNet endpoints and grab some test files and transfer them over, and I'll actually probably use those test endpoints in the demo. Now, there's also Globus Connect Personal. And Globus Connect Personal is kind of interesting. It's a way to get an endpoint on your personal computer, your laptop. And I'll actually do an install of Globus Connect Personal and set up an endpoint right here on my laptop. Okay, one thing to keep in mind here as we go through is our docs page. We've got really good docs on just about everything we do. We've got how-tos, we've got guides. Everything we've got is really well documented. I credit our product manager for that. She's done just a fantastic job of making sure everything we do has documentation associated with it. So let's go ahead and jump right in and do a demo here, and we'll log into Globus, and I'll show you how the identity management system works. Search for a couple endpoints. We'll do a transfer. I'll show you sharing with an identity. Maybe we'll even go into groups. I'll show you the management console, and then I'll actually do an install of Globus Connect Personal and show you how easy it is to set up your own endpoint right there on your laptop. So it all starts at the globus.org page with the login button, and you'll see that as we go on. So enough with the slides already, and let's pop up a demo here. And I am going to bring up, let's see, let's go here first. And I am going to log in. And I'm actually going to log in using my University of Chicago credentials. And this is going to be onto my personal account here. So I'll log in to, oh, that's good. Continue. And I had already authenticated earlier, so as much as I try and like to make these demos live and clear out all my cache, inevitably something's cached in there. So I'm logged in now with my University of Chicago credentials. And so when I started here at University of Chicago, we've got a research computing center with a cluster called Midway. And when I went here and I just went and searched on Midway, and I noticed I had, oh, where could it be? If I searched, oh, there, it's hidden under there. So I searched on Midway, clicked on it, and lo and behold, there we go. They had Globus Connect server all set up on Midway's RCC, and you'll see this is my root directory, my home directory on Midway, and I've got some test files there that I've been transferring back and forth. Like I say, I do these demos quite often, but that was it. There's my endpoint. There's my my personal directory system. So to show you a transfer here, let's go and select an endpoint. And as promised, we'll go to that ESNet endpoint, and there is a read-only test here. And if I want to take this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and those are all pretty big files. So let me go ahead in here and delete this. My apologies. I try and get this set up as much as I can for the demos, but I do so many, there's inevitably something I forget. So let me go ahead and delete that item and refresh it. There, it's gone. Okay, so if I want to transfer this file, this 1 megabyte file from this ESNet endpoint to my Midway account, just click on it, press the button, transfer, and here it goes. It's transferring over to Midway. And you'll notice that I've submitted that task. There's a task ID associated with it. I could have optionally labeled that transfer. If you're doing multiple transfers, you may want to label it so you can figure out what's going on. Obviously, larger files take longer amounts of time. So if you need to go back and search through what's going on, you could label those transfers and search for that. And if we refresh this, you'll notice there it is. That 1 megabyte file I transferred over. So it's easy. It's as easy as that to do the transfers back and forth between endpoints and Globus. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in to a different account. And I am going to log in under my Globus ID, but I've got a separate account called Naraki Personal that I'm going to log into. So I'm not my greg@globus.org or my NarakiNet account. I'm a separate account here, so we can do some transferring some sharing demos here. And if you notice here, if I select an endpoint, here's my Midway endpoint again, but I can't get there because I don't have the proper credentials. If I click on that, it will optionally ask me to enter. So if I did have those credentials, I could, but I'm going to pretend right now that I don't, and I'm a completely different guy. But now I need some place to transfer to. And I don't have any endpoints because let's say I'm a new Globus user, so I just logged in. So I want to transfer to and from my laptop. So I'm going to install Globus Connect Personal. And if you'll notice there, I just clicked on Get Globus Connect Personal. I can download for just about any operating system here. I've actually already got it here, so I'm not going to download it. But I'm going to generate a setup key. Oh, a display name. So I've got a display name, and I'm going to call my laptop Greg's personal laptop. And spell it right. And generate a setup key for that. I'm going to download Globus Connect Personal, which I did. I'm going to run Globus Connect Personal and ask me for that setup key. Copy it. Paste it in. Go. Simple as that. So Globus Connect Personal should be up and running on my laptop. And if I had my taskbar, you'd also see it in the taskbar there, but I'm going to trust that it's there. So I'm going to go back to transfer files, and I'm going to start by selecting an endpoint. Let's go ahead and search for that. Greg's personal laptop. There it is. Shows right up. Globus window. Click on that, and there it is. There's my directory structure right here on my laptop. Now, I can go into Globus Connect Personal, and I can restrict what directories and whatnot that in file permissions that you're able to look at. And you'll notice here I often, when I'm really running it in real life with my non-demo Connect Personal, I restricted to that Globus endpoint directory. So let's go see if we can transfer a file now to my personal computer, and let's go back to that ESNet. And there's the DTN. And let's go ahead and let's grab that 1 meg file. And we're going to transfer it over again. I could have labeled the transfer. I could have done some other controls on it. I could have encrypted the transfer if I wanted, but I did it kind of quick and dirty here. And if we go, and if I refresh that, you'll notice that file got transferred over. And just in case you don't believe me here, if we look on my drive, there it is. That 1 megabyte file actually got transferred over. So quick and easy way to set up an endpoint right there on your laptop, transfer files over. So now let's do a little sharing. So let's say, I'm going to dismiss this. I'm over here on my everyday account, and I had a conference the other day at University of Chicago called MindBytes, and I put a PDF file up there. So let's say I wanted to share that directory. I can go in there and I can say share, and I'm going to set up a share here. And let's see, let's give it a share name. We'll call it my Greg's line. And I can, you can hone down that description and add a little bit better description in there. And I don't know really what else to say, but it's my. And you can attach keywords so when people are searching on it, they can find it. Let's go ahead and we'll create that share. So there we go. My MindBytes directory is now a share, but who am I going to share it with? So let's go ahead and share it with a user. And I am going to share it with myself on my other account. And if I search for Naraki Personal, there I am. I come up, click on me. It's going to send email. This is my personal email account. I'm going to set permissions to read only. I'm going to add that permission to the file. And now you'll notice on my share, I've got Naraki Personal, read only share on that MindBytes directory. So let's go see if I can access it from my other account. Dismiss that. Bring up this. And let's search for that. There's my MindBytes share. If I click on that, there we go. There's that file. Click on it, transfer it. So what I did now is I just took a directory on my RCC account and shared it with somebody, and then that person can go and get the file. Alternately, you can just send them an email. They'll be able to use their own credentials, their own campus credentials to log into Globus. We follow just about, if you got CI login credentials, that works fine. So that person's able to log in, go to my directory that I've set permissions up. I don't have to contact the RCC administrator and set up an FTP account. I don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get those shares set up. It's installed with the RCC's authority here, and I'm able to give those permissions, effectively proxy those permissions to a third party, and they're able to come to my directories and download the files, access my directories that I have supervised and said that they have the permissions to. So simple as that to set up a share and share files with people in other institutions. You'll notice that I could have, go back here to, I could have also shared with a group, and I could go up here and I could set up a group. I could create a new group, and I could add individuals to that group. I could make it so individuals could connect to that group automatically with, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that because that's pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and make a new group here. So I'm going to create a new group, and this will be Craig's Friends.
Now, Greg, this is with the subscription, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Sharing, you need a subscription to share.
Okay. Thank you.
And you do have a subscription. So
We do.
if your RCC has set up, if your computing center has set up your Globus Connect server that way, you should be able to see that. So I can add a description here. And I'm going to make this viewable to all Globus users. I'm going to create that group. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to edit some of the settings on this group. And I'm going to make this group visible to all Globus users, so anybody that logs in could join that group. The member names are visible to just the group administrators. You can create subgroups on that. Invitations to group can be sent by group admins, but I'm going to say users can request membership if they're a logged in Globus user. I'm just going to let them log in and connect to that group and join that group. And I'm not going to bother with having to give them permissions to join that group. So you see, you got a lot of leeway in here how you create that group. And I'm going to allow that user to join automatically if all policies are met. Save those changes. Membership fields, I'm going to ask for a name and email address, and you could even add some terms and conditions. And I can edit that, and I can add in the term to be nice to everyone. So you got to be nice to join my group. So there we go. I've got my group all set up. As my other account, if I wanted here to go and I want to search for groups, let's search for Greg and see what comes up. And there's Greg's friends. I'm going to click on that group. I'm going to say, hey, I want to join that group. And my name, this is my personal email account. Organization, fill all this in. Terms and conditions. Be nice to have read the terms and conditions. So I've got to be nice to everybody. Submit my application to join. And there it is. My membership is now active in the group because as the other account, I'm allowing that. So there we go. There's a way to set up groups and join groups. And now if I set permissions on that directory for just those group members, I'd still be able to see it. So we could go and I can set on to see which account I'm on here. So I'm going to go back to manage data transfer files. I'm on midway here. I've got it's a different endpoint. Go up one folder. Let's see. Here's a tutorial shared endpoint. I've got some files in there. Let's go ahead and share that. And there's my tutorial endpoint. A more description. We'll go ahead and create that. And I'm going to share it with my group. Select my group, Greg Friends. Add that permission. There we go. So now the Greg's Friends group should be able to read that. And if we go back here to my other account, I am going to go to manage data and transfer files. And let's search here for Greg's tutorial share. And sure enough, I can see it because I have joined that group. I'm a member of that group, so I could take those files and transfer them. So there's some examples how to transfer files, how to share files with Globus. It's really as simple as that. And I am going to go ahead and show you one other thing here. I'm going to show you the management console. So I am going to click on that. Oh, I'm sorry, not that account. I don't have permissions as my personal account. I need to go back here. In the management console, I can see activity on endpoints that are monitored by me, endpoints owned by me. No active tasks right now because those files were pretty small. But if I go back to this monitored, so I'm monitoring these endpoints, I can see files, successful transfers. I can see transfers that are having some trouble. You can see there's some retries going on here. If I'm the administrator of that endpoint, I can use this console to pause some transfers if I want to do some maintenance. So I can set up pause rules, or at certain times various things happen. So there's a lot you can do from this management console by just if you want to just monitor, or if you are going to actually do some control on there. Looking at this, our Globus console here, you can set bookmarks. So you can set bookmarks on various various endpoints, and it's bookmarks like you might find in a browser. So endpoints you use often, you can go to them very easy with just a click of the button there. There's one I use quite frequently, getting the usage reports from the Globus master console. So there's an example of how you use the Globus console to transfer, to share, set up groups. Really, it comes down to, I showed you how to create a personal endpoint. So it comes down to now just playing with it. You've got it on your on your system there. So you should be able to see your own directories. I'm not quite sure how your RCC has them set up, but you should be able to see your own endpoints and transfer data. At the very least, you could set up some your personal endpoint and do some transfers from those test endpoints that I showed you earlier. So let's jump back into the slides here. As I mentioned, I did a quick check at Idaho State, and I did see that there is indeed one endpoint there called RDC. And if I search for that, RDC, there we go. So there's the Idaho State DTN. I obviously don't have permissions to authenticate and log in, but perhaps you do and can log in using your Idaho State credentials and see your own personal directory structure. One other thing I wanted to point out that I neglected to earlier is in accounts. As I mentioned, I've got a lot of different hats I wear. I've got my University of Chicago ID. I've got my Globus ID. You can even add your own personal IDs in here. And you can see I don't do that because I need separate accounts to do these demos. But the neat thing about Globus is in our account system, you can link those together. So no matter which identity I log into, I've got the credentials of both those identities. So even if I had logged in as my Globus ID, I'd be able to go to the University of Chicago endpoints on Midway and bring that up. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the file systems that we operate with. So we connect to just about any type of POSIX storage. HPSS, we've got an HPSS connector written by NCSA, but that is also stock with Globus Connect Server. HDFS as well, so various file systems that are stock with Globus Connect Server. We've also got premium connectors, and those are the Amazon Web Services, the S3 connector, so you can connect to your S3 directories if you have those. SpectraLogic, Black Pearl. We've got now the Google file system. We've got connectors for that. We've got connectors for Ceph, and iRods should be coming in the near future. So just about any type of storage that's common to the research world, we've got it. So there is some magic, there is some behind the scenes work that needs to be done to get all that magic to happen. And hopefully that's invisible to all you users, but there are certain ports that need to be opened in order to get Globus to work. And those are listed here, and again, listed in more detail in our documentation. So the best practice, so how does this all work? How do we get this file transfer? How do we get the speeds that we're so famous for? And you're only as good as your network, and this file is shamelessly stolen from the folks at es.net, Eli Dart in particular, and it depicts kind of your modern research campus type network. And the key here is the data itself is not going through your enterprise border and firewall. You don't need that stateful packet inspection for those for the raw data and the encryption, the encrypted, especially if you have encryption on the file transfer. So all the control channels still run through that border router, but this clean, fast path through the enterprise router, this clean, fast path through the border router, and what's called the Science DMZ architecture gets you those high-speed transfers from wherever you are to your internal data transfer nodes. And really kind of the key point is here, your data is happening between your data transfer nodes. So that traffic doesn't have to go through your enterprise firewall, but your control channels will certainly go through your enterprise firewall and that stateful packet inspection. So where stateful packet inspection is needed, you got it. Where it isn't, you can bypass it and get that network performance that Globus brings you. Let me just pause for a second if there's any questions here. I should have done that after the demo, but it'll allow me to get a drink too. Just double check to make sure.
Doesn't look like we have any questions here so far.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so here we go. So illustrating some of this performance. Some of the performance, I mean, essentially we're 20 times SCP, and we've actually demonstrated 100 times SCP, and that's really kind of due to the limitations of SCP itself. And this is our grid FTP transfer system that has that. Really, what it comes down to is we're capable of saturating any WAN link. So any link you give us, we can saturate that and give you the fastest data transfer that's available. If, like I said, if you want speed, we'll give you speed, provided you got that network configured in the Science DMZ way. And really, once you do that, all your limiting factor really comes down to your file system. Again, performance is an end-to-end equation. So, your DTN network paths routers, once that path is set up correctly, our tools just work. So the big trade-off here is always performance versus reliability, and we've got a couple in our when you're configuring your Globus Connect server. We've got a couple of levers you can pull to set up to maximize that speed. And it really comes down to these two, concurrency and parallelism. And, parallelism is a network level optimization. That's down in your TCP streams. And that's setting up those multiple TCP channels. And concurrency is you just take that and you do that n times. So when you have multiple files to transfer, you set with your concurrency set higher, you can transfer multiple files in one request at one time. Now, we have the ability to actually tune those parameters individually, but we've also got just kind of a general setting with a high, medium, low transfer, and you can set those depending on how you want your network to perform. And honestly, if you use our just kind of coarse network setup, you're going to get about 90% of what you could do if you're really tuning for concurrency and parallelism. So that's Globus transfer in a nutshell. And you've seen that. You've seen our web interface doing those transfers, but you tell me that you're old school and everybody loves the comfort and glow of a VT100. So I'm kind of old school myself. We've also got a command line interface. And in that command line interface, you can do pretty much everything I just showed you in the web interface. And the other neat thing about that is if you've got scripting, you can script around the command line interface to do things kind of customized to your own workflows. And quick demo here. If I bring up Globus help, and you can see there's the ls command there, and I think I've cached. There's that UUID right there is the UUID of my endpoint on Midway. So if I do an ls on that UUID, there we go. There's those files that you saw on my endpoint on Midway. So you can do everything in the GUI, in the command line, that you can in the GUI here. Okay, so there's one other thing I'd like to bring up in these situations of custom workflows and as it relates to researchers here. You know, we said the cloud has transformed how software and platforms are delivered. And you saw our Globus SaaS platform in action. And at the lower layer, you've got that infrastructure as a service. And indeed, even the Globus web app runs on Amazon EC2. So that's kind of the platform on which we built that web app. But we've also exposed this middle layer here. So we've actually exposed those APIs. So if you've got your own web applications, your own portals that already exist, you can use our API set to incorporate some of those things that you saw me do in the web app. So what are there? Authentication. We've got authentication APIs. We've got APIs for transfer. So if you've got existing workflows, existing applications, feel free to use our API set to do things in the Globus way. And kind of as a quick demo here, everything on the, or a quick example here, everything on the right, the Globus Connect, that's the connection to the file system there. And these aspects that I talked about with Globus, the data publication discovery, file sharing, file transfer and replication, and the Globus Auth, we've got our API set behind that, and we expose that. So you can go ahead and you can build interesting portals, interesting web applications, all using our API set to do things in the Globus way. So if you've got workflows that have file transfer needs, authentication needs, feel free to use our API set. This example of that is the folks at NCAR. They had an existing data portal where they make available atmospheric data for quite some time, and they had an existing HTTP download, but they then added in the Globus transfer service. So they used our API set, abstracted what they did, and now using their existing data portal, you can do things in the Globus way and take advantage of things like grid FTP and those fast file transfers. A little bit about our API set. Our API set is RESTful APIs. They're open. We've got, and I'll talk a little bit about where you can find all that information. We've got a Python SDK, so wrapper in Python to all those APIs, and all that is open, and you can find that on our GitHub. So kind of to conclude here and to wrap up, you know, we're here to help you. We've got lots of great open source examples on our GitHub. I encourage you to join our mailing lists, encourage you to join our developer discuss lists. As I mentioned, our documentation is fantastic, and we've got just about documentation for just about anything out there that is Globus. And when all else fails, feel free to contact us. We've got great support system, various levels of support, and our support folks are really friendly, and we'll get back to you quickly and efficiently. The other thing that we can certainly offer you is we love to take the show on the road. We call it the Globus World Tour. And we've got really 4 key presentations that we do. We've got our intro to Globus that you've pretty much seen here today. But we've got a Globus admin tutorial as well, where we actually have you set up your own Globus Connect server instance live. We bring our We bring some Amazon EC2 instances, and we invite you and show you how to set up that Connect server live so you can see what it takes to actually do an install. Now, not that you'd really be doing that on your RCC system, because I think your system administrators would have an issue with that. But let's say you had an instrument somewhere where you wanted to install Globus Connect server on in a Linux-based instrument. So you would learn how to install Globus Connect server and get it running and setting up your own endpoints and transferring data. We've got a tutorial on Globus transfer in our API set. Got this tutorial called Building the Modern Research Data Portal. We've got Jupyter notebooks that show you how to use that API set, and we kind of set that little tutorial up as a hackathon. We've got tutorials on Globus Auth and our API set around that. Native app examples, native code examples there that we walk through and show you how to use our auth system as well. So kind of building on that, I mentioned that Globus admin tutorial. If you just can't wait and you want to take a look at it yourself, here's how you do it. We've got information on how to install it and how to install it on an EC2 instance. If you've got your own, you could try it out right now. But if we come to you, we bring our own EC2 instances, and you can do it in the tutorial. There's some helpful slides on that. And really in Globus admin, the key is that Globus Connect server conf file. And you'll see that throughout these helpful slides there. The Globus transfer API set showed you, I've got a link to a couple of slides there. And both the transfer and the auth APIs are covered in those slides. Got great doc on that API set. We've got a sample data portal, so you can see how it's done in real life. And that sample data portal is open source, so you could take it and hack it up to your heart's delight. And we've also got a Jupyter notebook there. And the Jupyter notebook is a really excellent way. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a way to essentially Python embedded in the web, so you can go and change your Python code right there and then, and watch things change with Globus and watch Globus do things in a Pythonic way right in the comfort of your own web browser. The Globus Auth API set, again, the same set of slides, the documentation, sample data portal that you can go through and see how Globus Auth works, and then native app examples. We've actually got code examples to show you how to use our authentication system. So that's really all I have here. I hope that was a pretty good introduction. I'll take some questions here. We ended pretty well. We've got about 9 more minutes left for questions, so be happy to entertain those.
Well, it's pretty quiet here. Yeah, it was a really great presentation.
Okay, I hope yeah, I hope I added a level of comfort. I mean, that's really my goal here, is to add that level of comfort. And I'll give kind of a quick personal story here. It was funny. This was about a month ago. I was sitting I was sitting on my bed with my iPad, and I'm watching Amazon Prime on my iPad. And I got an email from one of my coworkers, and they wanted some video files that I had, and I happened to have them on my endpoint at Midway. And right there from my iPad, I brought up the control, the browser and the control, and set up a share, and it automatically sent them an email, and then they downloaded the files. So it just occurred to me after I'd done that. It's like, wow, I just did some really powerful things here. From my iPad, and it was kind of second nature to me. So as you become more comfortable with it, I hope it becomes second nature to you all as well.
Really great.
You'll share the recording with Kendra?
Yeah, will you just send that recording along?
Okay. Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
And what I'll do is I'll send Kendra my files as well.
That'll be perfect.
Some files. I'll send him the slides. I'm sorry. I'll send him the slides, and then he can put them up on a Globus shared endpoint for you all.
Yeah, that'll be a good test one.
Yeah. And like I said,
Right.
we're here. Contact us. Let us know. We're happy to come out there. We'd love to see you. Love to do some tutorials live.
Right. Great. Well,
Okay.
thanks for your presentation. We appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be contacting you if we need some further assistance.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.